Greetings, friends. You are tuned into We Own This Town Music, the podcast for showcasing new and notable music from Nashville and surrounding areas. I'm your host, Michael Hix, and this is volume 240. This show is part of We Own This Town, a podcast network focused on entertainment and documentary content brought to you by Nashvillians. Look us up at weownthistown.net and follow us at We Own This Town on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and get updates about all the latest episodes from every show across the network. We got a mailing list over on weownthistown.net, and you will get a weekly reminder about all of our releases if you sign it. Or you could just subscribe to our shows in your favorite podcast app. That's maybe a little easier, but hey, I love sending the weekly email summary, so I'm going to highly recommend you subscribe. I've said it before on previous episodes. I'm going to keep saying it at the top of every episode. If we can grow this thing, we can keep doing it. So please, get some mailing list subscriptions in there. Get some podcast subscriptions going. Much appreciated. If you need to get in touch about anything We Own This Town related, shoot us a DM on Instagram or Twitter, or just reach me directly at michael@weownthistown.net. This week on the show, as you might have gleaned from the episode title, we sit down with musician Michael Hix to discuss the collaborative project, the Nashville Ambient Ensemble. What's the Nashville Ambient Ensemble, you ask? Well, quite simply, it's a group of 7 musicians from a range of diverse styles brought together to record an album entitled Cerulean, due out on Centripetal Force Records on Friday, March 19th. You can pre-order it from Grimeys or over on Bandcamp. Both are linked in the episode description. Obviously, if you're in the Nashville area, hit up that Grimeys link. If you're anywhere else, hit up the Bandcamp link. Both will get you the record, but we love to support the local record store. If you've ever heard the names Diatome Deli, Belly Full of Stars, Jack Silverman, Luke Schneider, Timon Capel, or Synthesis, well, then you're already familiar with some of the great talent involved with the Nashville Ambient Ensemble. I'm not going to spend too much time setting up this interview, but I just want to say that I'm really appreciative that Hix was able to take the time to speak with me about his background, how the project came together, and talk through a playlist of tracks from each of the musicians that appear on Cerulean. I think you're going to love the interview, so without much further ado, let's get into it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and talking about the Nashville Ambient Ensemble and all of the things involved with that. I am very happy to have you here and extremely excited for this record.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate your enthusiasm about it and taking the time to talk to me about the music.
Yeah. We were just talking right before the start of the episode about some parties in Nashville and Buddy Town and going to La Peep, and that makes me wonder, what is your relationship with Nashville? Like, are you a long timer? Have you been here for a really long time? Like, what's your history with the city?
Well, I was around for the golden age of Buddy Town, and I remember those parties. It was a lot of fun, but my relationship with Nashville started, I went to college at Belmont, so I started at Belmont in 2003, so I've been around Nashville, or felt like Nashville was home for almost 20 years, I guess.
Yeah.
I had a stint starting in 2011 when I moved, after college, moved to New York. And I lived in New York for almost 8 years before coming back to Nashville.
Nice.
I've been back in Nashville for 2 years, and it's really great to be back.
Do you know who Tracy Moore is? The journalist Tracy Moore. She used to write for The Scene all the time, and she helped start the Cream. I saw a tweet from her the other day that said, anytime I've known someone that lived in New York, they've always lived there for 8 years. Never more. So
that's hilarious. Yeah, it may be the perfect amount of time to go through the process of, I'm living my dreams, this is the best place ever, I'll never leave, and then just working through that whole process. Yeah,
I mean, if you're post-college living in New York, that's a great time to live in New York. It's really prime time.
There's definitely a contingent of people there for whom it is a post-college thing.
Yeah.
And it definitely was for me for at least a little while. But yeah, that's really funny. That does seem to be a good solid number.
Yeah, I had a short stint there. I did not make it 8 years, unfortunately. I only had, I think, 4 years in me. But it was wonderful. New York's great. If you're able to live there, living there was very cool. But I also think Nashville's a cool place to live. Obviously, came back. So did you.
Right.
Something about it.
Right. New York was incredible, and I look back very fondly on that time. But it came to an end, and now I'm really glad to be back in Nashville. It's changed, at least I think it's changed a lot since I left in 2011.
For sure.
And yeah, I mean, I love it here.
So what is your relationship with music in general? Like, did you go to Belmont for music? Were you a musician or a musically minded kid? Obviously, if you're involved in the ambient ensemble, we'll get there. There is something musical happening, but where did you kind of start?
Yeah, well, with music, it goes all the way back to just being a kid. When I was starting, I guess when I was around 2 or 3, my dad kind of trying to get into the country music world. And he started working with a producer in Nashville and would, I think, come to Nashville on a weekly or at least a monthly basis, recording demos, writing songs, and all of that. And he was really into it for a few years. And so some of my earliest memories were my dad leaving to go to Music Row and write some songs. When I got old enough, I would go with my dad to the studio where he was recording his demos. So that left a huge impression on me.
Oh, I'm sure.
He didn't end up becoming a country music artist, but he is extremely talented, an amazing singer. The experience of kind of looking up to him and what he was doing with country music in Nashville, and then just generally his influence with music was definitely a really big one.
As a kid, to go to like a pro recording studio, my mind would be blown by the number of knobs available, you know?
It was for sure mind-blowing to be in this. And, this was like in the age where the big recording studios of Music Row were still like thriving, like going strong.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, I don't know, 8 years old or something, and just sitting on the couch in the control room alone with this recording engineer, like behind this giant console. And then my dad's like in this live room singing with these musicians who are just insanely talented. Yeah, that was mind blowing for sure. Yeah. And I was just like, I want to do that, when I'm older.
So did that lead you to like get a guitar or get a keyboard, or like how did that lead you into actual music?
I took like piano lessons when I was really young, but it really started when I was 12 and I got a guitar, and I became obsessed with guitar for sure.
Nice.
And I think, honestly, I think that's how I got interested in Belmont, because I think coming home from the studio with my dad one day, we drove by Belmont and he said, "Oh yeah, that's like a really good music school." And I think I just tucked that away in the back of my mind.
Yeah. So did you go to Belmont for music, or was it just a presence in your life while you were in college?
Yeah, I did. I started at Belmont as a music business major, and I took a couple of the business classes because it was the degree is pretty heavy on business. I took a couple of those business classes and was like, oh, this is not for me. And looking back, I wish I would have stuck with it, because I think the whole degree would have been really helpful. But yeah, I shifted gears, and hopefully not to open a can of worms, but I ended up studying religion at Belmont. And then I did a master's degree in religion at Vanderbilt after that.
I don't know why that would open a can of worms, but I'm not invested in what you graduated in. That's fine by me, No,
so at Belmont you were required to take like 2 religion courses or some kind of spirituality courses. And at the time I was trying to figure out, well, I don't want to do a music business degree, so I was trying to figure out what to major in. And I took this Old Testament class, and it was like fascinating, because it was looking at these texts in a way that I had never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all about like inquiry and questioning and, all these different methods of looking at the texts that were very new to me. So I decided I wanted to do that. And that was immensely beneficial in many ways. But yeah, that's what I ended up studying.
Yeah. I went to MTSU. One of the most popular majors there was the recording industry program, either in the studio or music business. And I just can't help but think if, I graduated college in 2001, the lessons learned then versus what the music industry is now is just absurd. I mean, there's still royalties and like all of the basics are still there, but it's just a different ball game, like the music industry has changed. Even from 2011, is that when you said you graduated?
Graduated in 2007.
2007 to now, like it's
different universe.
It's a totally different universe. So yeah, you might have gotten something out of it that would be beneficial in regards to like what you're doing musically now, but also you might have just had to relearn it all anyway.
Yeah. This is a good point. And just when it comes to like my music and what I have been doing with music, honestly, a lot of I studied in the religion department at Belmont and Vanderbilt influenced what kind of music I wanted to make and the uses that I have in mind for what I want my music to be used for. I was reading this like jazz composition theory book. I can't remember the author. This was a few years ago. But the author was saying like performers should study like, I don't know, music theory and like technique and these very technical aspects of music. But he said the composers, while those elements are still important, they also need to study like the humanities, literature, history, religion. So I believe that. I think that's very important. And so in that way, I'm kind of glad that I ended up studying religion.
For sure. That's extremely poignant. That's an incredible statement to make. And that's a heavy thing to bring with you as a songwriter in general. For sure. Mm-hmm. Like if your job is just to go in the studio and play bass, by all means, be as technically proficient as possible. But if you're composing and writing songs, I completely agree with that. That's a fantastic statement. Love it.
Yeah. You have to be in touch, with like the human heart element of music, I guess.
So does studying religion or spirituality, does that directly lead to an interest in ambient music or just more general like classical composition? You're talking about what do I want the intent of my music to be? Mm-hmm. How do I want my music to be used? Is the answer to that question, I need to make something that's more atmospheric and more ambient and more free flowing? Is that a direct response? Or did you get into ambient music because like someone had a really awesome keyboard and it changed you?
Well, I guess it's a little bit of both because I for sure had discovered a few albums over time and been to a few performances where I was like, oh, what are they using? I need to know what is going on here. Yeah. On the other side, in terms of religion or spirituality directly influencing the kind of music I want to make, I think it's easiest for me to describe what is most valuable for me in music that I listen to, like the music I really love the most, like desert island kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And that is music where I can't do anything else while I'm listening to it. Like an example for me is Arvo Pärt, the Estonian composer. I have to like sit down and listen to his music. It just seems to demand that. But I go to his music and other types of music for sort of like I don't know, it sounds kind of cheesy, but like a sacred space. We all need, whether it's like spiritual or secular or whatever, we all need a space where we can step away from the noise of our daily life and just like recollect, remember who we are and sort of reset. That's like the thing that I need the most that I get from music. So I have more and more tried to make the music that I make be of that sort.
I totally agree. A sacred space is an important thing to have, however you get there, and that's definitely not a spiritual comment or religious comment. A sacred space is a sacred space. Doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you get into ambient music? I guess that's just the most straightforward way to say it. Like when you were in college and making music, or when you were in New York and you're deciding to make music, is that the genre that you're most drawn to at first? Or were you like in indie rock bands and slowly made your way over there?
Yeah, the biggest eye-opener or watershed type of thing for me was when I first heard William Basinski's The Disintegration Loops. I remember I was at Belmont, and I think I like read the Pitchfork review of it, and this was like in 2003 or 2004. And wow, when I heard The Disintegration Loops, I have for sure never heard anything like that. I didn't know that music existed like that, or that it was possible to make something like that. It just completely, massively expanded what I thought was what could be possible with music. So that sent me down like a big rabbit hole. I bought like everything that William Basinski had at the time. It was awesome too, because at the time he hadn't reached that level of fame that he has now. And I think you literally had to like email him and tell him what you wanted, and he would email you this really personal like note back, like thank you so much. And I was just amazed by him, both his music, which is incredible, but also what a seemingly genuinely good person he was. So anyway, he was a major influence on me, and was honestly a big reason why I wanted to move to New York, because he, of course, like had this amazing, iconic Brooklyn story of living in Williamsburg in the 80s, which is a very different Williamsburg, not what it is now. And he had this loft there where he would have these incredible parties. And I know like Ann and I was a big part of that, and like Devendra Banhart, Coco Rosie, and all of these artists were experimenting there. Anyway, as you can tell, I really love William Basinski. Yeah. So yeah, major influence. When I got to New York, I remember going to a show at the Stone on Houston Street in Lower East Side. And it was a duo performance of Ryuichi Sakamoto and Taylor Dupree. And Sakamoto was just playing like, I think, a grand piano. And Taylor Dupree had all these synthesizers. And I think he like a modular synthesizer maybe. But that show I was amazed by. And I didn't have any synthesizers. And after that show, I was like, I got to figure out I got to figure out what was going on in that performance. Yeah. And I remember I emailed him and just asked him like, please let me know what you're doing. And yeah, that fueled my deep dive into synthesizers.
Yeah, that's awesome. The Disintegration Loops, I had a very, very similar experience and impact with hearing that. And just, I mean, it put me in that sacred space that you mentioned. Just like, I have to listen to this. And I know that it's not a long loop, but there's something just transformative about listening to it. It's just mesmerizing.
Just the process. You like participate in the process of the music decaying, and it has this really profound effect, I think.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it is literally disintegrating as part of the recording is like, it's a kind of a one-time only thing. Like you can't recreate that ever again, specifically like that. Like you can do the thing again, that you can go through the steps to get there, but it's never going to be the same twice. Which, I think getting into the ambient world, there's a lot of improvisation involved with that. Now, I think Basinski, in specifically speaking, that is a recording, as it were, that's disintegrating. But so it's maybe not as applicable. But I think with ambient music, a lot of times there is a lot of making it up as you go. Like you've got a vibe, or maybe that is very specific to what you're doing with the Nashville Ambient Ensemble, where you have gathered together a group of other like-minded, though it's not one-to-one, everyone's in the same world, but very distinct in what they do. And everyone is very much open to improvisation and sort of making it up as they go, along a certain vibe. I'm not sure exactly what I'm getting at here, except that I can see the through line from Basinski to Nashville Ambient Ensemble.
Yeah.
So how you move back to Nashville, when does the process start that you start connecting with these other musicians that are sort of in this same world, that are part of the ensemble? Like, I don't know if you consider yourself the leader or founder or what the hierarchy.
I call myself the administrative assistant.
Okay. So not a strong hierarchy there. Everyone's sort of on the same level. But you come back to Nashville, and how do you start meeting those people? Like, does that happen naturally? You already knew some of them, or?
A couple of them. One of them was a friend from my initial stint in Nashville, and another was an acquaintance. The rest I met since I came back.
Nice.
At the end of 2018. So yeah, initially when I moved back to Nashville, my wife and I, when we moved here, our son was 1, and at that point, I had very little time to make new music.
Sure.
And actually, I was trying to get into DJing.
Okay.
Because I was like, well, I don't have time to make music, and I'm missing this like amazing house techno music that I used to be exposed to in New York. I'm gonna bring some of this to Nashville, and I failed miserably with that. People were like, "No, we don't play that here." Like I tried to contact some bars, and they're just like, "No, it doesn't. House music doesn't work at this bar." But anyway, the ensemble kind of just happened as I was trying to become a DJ. I played a show at the beginning of 2019 with Deli Palomasis, or Diatom Deli, who we had connected through social media. I didn't know her previously. We played a show at the beginning of 2019, and I was extremely impressed with her music, and we kind of hit it off, and we played a lot of shows after that, and we're already starting to collaborate a little bit. But anyway, at that show, Timon Capel, who plays guitar on the album, was a friend of mine, came up and said that we should collaborate or get together and jam sometime. And then I also met Jack Silverman that night, plays electric guitar on the album. And he also suggested that we should collaborate. And then like over the next couple of months, I just noticed a lot of people wanted to like get together and jam. And then it made me remember what's so amazing about making music in Nashville, and that is it's an extremely collaborative place to make music.
Yeah.
People want to make music together, and even if you're not recording like an album, they just want to go over to somebody's house and just jam on Friday night. And that was something that I had completely wandered away from in New York, where I think just logistically it's much harder to get some people together and play music, just the space constraints and stuff. But also I found that the scene that I was trying to get into there was very focused on a solo music practice. I had people that I was in touch with, but it was more like, hey, listen to my new music and tell me what you think about it, instead of like, let's play some music together.
Right.
Anyway, I kind of got off on that. But what I was trying to say was that as people as I started to realize and remember what's so special about making music in Nashville, I really had a strong desire to create an ensemble. And I got together with Timon in like April of 2019, and we jammed a little bit. We were really happy about the sounds that were coming out. And I think that night we were like, let's try this like so-called ambient ensemble idea. And after that, it happened really organically and really quickly.
You recorded at Battle Tapes, right? With Jeremy Ferguson?
That's right.
The album?
Yep.
Had you like brought the Justice League together prior to recording? Or was it sort of like, okay, we all sort of know each other here and there, let's just go and do this? Or was there practices and composition sessions and all that sort of prior?
Yeah. And quickly, I want to note that I had experience with like an ensemble setup previously back in like 2007, 2008. I had a band in Nashville that was kind of a part of like the post-rock world called the Bird Ensemble. And that was kind of a model for what I did with the ambient ensemble, where we get all together in a live room in a studio and record everything live, like no overdubs. That's what we did with Bird Ensemble, and I really love making music that way, and I've always kind of wanted to get back to that. So anyway, that was
so you had prior experience too. You had like a shell that you were working with that you knew would work.
But to answer your question, it came together very quickly, but we did 2 full band rehearsals leading right up to the sessions, and then we went in and did the recording sessions, which were 2 days at Battle Tapes.
Nice. Well, I have a playlist that you have provided me with that I believe is from one song from each member of the ensemble, and it would be cool to sort of just listen to that, let the audience hear the song, and then you kind of tell me a little bit about each person, because I think the ensemble is really impressive. It's a very diverse crowd of music makers,
they're amazing people, amazing musicians, and I feel very lucky and honored that they were up for this weird project and that they contributed their talents to it.
I'll just read them off quickly so everyone knows who's involved with the ambient ensemble. Diatom Deli, and her real name is Deli Palomasisk. Kim Ruger, who performs as Belly Full of Stars. Jack Silverman. Luke Schneider. We have yourself, Michael Hix. We have Cynthia Cardenas and Timon Capel, who we have mentioned several times as well. So that's the whole ensemble, right?
That's the group, yep.
That's a good group of folks. It's a really good group of folks. So, let's just dive into this first track that you've outlined here from Diatom Deli, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Sure.
Going out to the world tonight. Time loves
All right, so we just heard Diatome Deli with Sonrisa from My Body 'Tis of Thee mixtape off of Centripetal Force, the same label that's putting out the Nashville Ambient Ensemble record. What can you tell me about Diatome Deli?
Yeah, that's a beautiful song, and I love Deli's music. Honestly, she's just one of my favorite artists. Period. And I've had the pleasure of working with her on some of her new music, which is just fantastic. So yeah, I love Deli's music. I met Deli, as I mentioned earlier. We connected on social media and played a show together in January 2019. And then from there, we just stayed in touch. We played some other shows together. And then I think like by about August of 2019, I was going full force with the ensemble idea. And I actually initially asked her, I was looking for a pianist, asked her if she played piano. And she was like, well, not really, but, I do vocals. And I actually wasn't even thinking of having vocals in the ensemble.
Right.
But I really wanted Deli to be a part of it. And well, first of all, I knew that it would sound amazing if she sang on the album.
Right.
So that was not, I didn't really have to deliberate on that. But other than that, I just wanted her to be a part of it. Yeah, I kind of took like the approach of I would just ask who I wanted to ask to be in the project. And depending on what they wanted to play, I would then figure out how it was going to work, like with the arrangements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with Deli.
That's cool. I saw her play, and it was absolutely fascinating to watch her build a song live, just from these loops and pedals and just all of the gadgets and gears that I am not aware of what they are.
Yeah. Her live show is really fantastic. She does something very particular in her shows that she doesn't do in her recorded music.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, like as you said, she usually does like 3 or 4 pieces in a set and just builds these sounds as she goes, like with and effects. And she also has some amazing visuals usually from her partner Marcus. And yeah, it's a pretty excellent live show for sure.
Yeah. So she does contribute vocals on the record, but in her own unique way, would you say?
For sure. Yeah. And she did exactly what I would have wanted and way better than that. I remember we met one-on-one like before the main rehearsals. We just sat down and I didn't even say anything. I was like, well, let's just try this first piece and see what happens. And after we played for a couple minutes and I was like, well, that's perfect. So let's just move on to the next one. And all of them were like that. We are just really on the same wavelength creatively. Yeah. And she was just right in the pocket every time. Amazing.
Incredible. All right, well, let's listen to the next track. This is going to be Belly Full of Stars with Pattern 3. All right, that was Belly Full of Stars with Pattern 3 off of the album Aura. I believe that is out on Triplicate Records.
Yes, I think that's right.
Yeah, and it's a 6-track album. All of the tracks are Pattern 1, Pattern 2, Pattern 3, Pattern 4, 5, Pattern 6. And I think, as you just heard, there is a very meditative quality to it, which I very much appreciate. I think sort of maybe a nod to the Basinski loops in a way, in the way that it builds.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that there for sure. I think it's a beautiful piece of music. Yeah, when you hear that, you definitely want to stop whatever else you're doing and just sit down and enjoy it.
100%.
Yeah, really beautiful. And I think, like, similar to Basinski's music, Kim's music, it has a lot of heart in it, you know, like really has like that emotional depth to it. It's not just sounds. There's more there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It has that what we were talking about with like the humanity. Like,
exactly,
it's a composition that understands and sort of evokes a humanity in its way, which I completely feel that for sure.
Yeah, and you know, you can't just train that quality to come out. It's just like, I don't know. That's kind of like an elusive thing. With music.
Yeah, I mean, evoking human emotion is not easy. So, kudos for her doing that.
Yeah,
very impressive.
Kim is so talented. She is an amazing composer. She does a lot of stuff with modular synthesizers and samplers. But when I was trying to get people involved with the project, she's also a wonderful piano player.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw her at a show one night, and I was trying to find someone who was really good on piano. And I asked her if she knew anyone, and she was like, "Well, I play piano," and so that was a done deal.
Nice.
I didn't even realize that she played piano, but she had some just really striking and powerful solos on the album. She has a very particular style on piano that, to me, is like similar to the pianist Bill Evans, like how Bill Evans plays on Kind of Blue, the Miles Davis album, where like she doesn't play every single note that she could play.
Mm-hmm.
She's like selective about what notes she plays, and she's not just trying to fill in space with her solos. They're very like, it's like a very determined, concentrated quality.
Yeah, that's interesting. Choosing what not to play seems almost harder than choosing what to play.
Yeah, on some of her solos, like the one that she does at the end of Jack's piece on the album, the Cerulean track, there are some parts where like she goes a few seconds without, on her solo, a few seconds without playing, and it's just like, it creates this tension where it's just like hanging.
Yeah.
And I think that is that's really special.
Absolutely agree. And that's a good transition into our next track, which is Jack Silverman with Mixed Signals.
Oh, perfect. I teed that up.
All right, we just heard Jack Silverman with Mixed Signals off of the forthcoming Now What EP. Before we talk about it, I do have to give my caveat of full transparency that EP is coming out on YK Records, which is a small indie label that I operate. So I did not pick this song to be included in this episode, but I am promoting it, and there is a bit of self-benefit to doing so. So I just like to make sure that that's clear and transparent whenever I play an artist that I'm working with. So it doesn't seem like
I picked it. I picked it because I love it, and I'm also so psyched that it is coming out on YK. I think that is a really great fit, a great label for a really great EP that Jack has made. And yeah, when I hear this song, I just instantly smile. It just makes you feel so good, especially like right now when it seems like spring is around the corner and we're like seeing a faint glimmer of light at the end of the COVID tunnel, maybe.
Yeah.
That piece is really great. Beautiful guitar patterns and sort of themes, I guess you would call them. Let's see. I can't remember if Kim is on that track or not. But Kim plays on the EP, Kim Ruger, who was also on the Ensemble album.
I think she's only on the Cerulean version. So on Jack's EP, Jack Silverman's EP, there is a version of Cerulean that's also on the Nashville Ambient Ensemble record. So they're kind of symbiotic in an interesting way.
That's right. Yeah, I love his EP. He is the king of crime jazz. Jack is for sure, but he's much more than that, and the music is much more than that too. It's very beautiful. I'm so glad to have met Jack since moving back to Nashville. He's an incredible musician, in my mind, one of the very best guitarists in Nashville. So yeah, I'm very happy to be able to work with him and just to have met him as well.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I'm not as close. I haven't recorded an album with him, but I do enjoy what he's doing. And I think I'm really excited to hear his contributions to the ambient ensemble and see how his guitar playing, which is pretty diverse. I mean, he can play all kinds of different styles, to see how that fits in to the record, especially amongst all of these other musicians and the styles that they bring.
One thing quickly that I've noticed with Jack's guitar playing is he always sounds incredibly relaxed when he's playing, even if he's playing something that's really fast or intricate or complex. It always sounds like he's really relaxed, and I feel like that is so hard to convey on an instrument. But he's just like so loose and comfortable with the instrument that it really comes through. Like sometimes when you hear guitar players, it's kind of like creates a little anxiety for me because I can tell like they're just trying, hard to do something. But with Jack, it's always just like so chill, even if he's like doing a crazy run. I think that's something really unique that Jack has.
I think that's a very astute observation. And I think, with people that solo, particularly guitarists that solo, there's always a tenseness to it. Like they're squeezing it out into the world.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. And I agree. Obviously I'm biased, but I don't hear that with Jack. And I think you put it very succinctly. That was very pleasant. All right, let's hear the next track. This is going to be Luke Schneider with Somnificus. All right, that was Luke Schneider with Somnificus, our best guest at pronunciation from the album Altar of Harmony. I love that album so much. Big fan of what Luke Schneider does with his pedal steel and his looping. I mean, this is another artist that I saw, I believe, at Dark Matter play, and he just has this unbelievable live setup with this light.
Were you at the Lamb Chop show?
No, I wasn't at the Lamb Chop show. I saw Stone Jack Jones play there, and he opened.
Oh, cool. All right.
And it was, I mean, he has these lights behind him that are sort of responsive to the music that he's playing, and he's got this setup that's like it's like an outfit almost.
For sure. Yeah. You got it all together. For sure. That track, I think Luke describes that one and a couple of others on the album as like a palate cleanser. It sits in between a longer pieces. Mm-hmm. I love that whole album. Luke is actually someone, we were acquaintances when I lived in Nashville previously, but never really hung out. And I ran into him on a trip back to Nashville when I was trying to find a place to live so we could move back. And he was talking about like this, I didn't even know he played pedal steel from when I knew him previously, but he was talking about like this pedal steel setup. He's making like ambient new age music with all these pedals, but like all the sound, even though it might not sound like it, it's all coming from the pedal steel. And I was like, wait, what is going on here? And we stayed in touch. We started to really connect after I moved back, and I shared my music with him. And anyway, at some point he sent me his album, and that was a huge influence for me because at the time I was really hyper focused on like being a solo musician. I was making like very ornately composed pieces where everything was like, written out, and very focused on like electronics, synthesizers, and like sequences and stuff. But when I listened to his music, I was like, oh, I could really take a different approach, and improvising more, bringing in some other instrumentation. All that to say, that's a excellent album, and it was definitely an influence for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, no disservice to Luke. I'm a huge fan. I think he's an interesting musician to bring into the ensemble because the pedal steel is a very distinctive sound. I mean, he has done something extremely unique with it that makes it not sound like that, but it's a really... it's a texture and just instrumentation that you generally would not expect to find in something called an ambient ensemble,
Yeah.
Really looking forward to hearing his contributions and how they appear throughout the record, because having heard his solo record and seen him live, I know that it fits. It's just completely fascinating.
Well, he brings the heat on the album, I can tell you. It's his playing on the album is more direct. He does use some effects, but it's a little more of a dry sound than he has some really excellent solos on the album for sure.
All right. Well, you want to go into the next track here?
Yeah, sure.
I believe in your track listing, this is Daniel Ellsworth and the Great Lakes with Follow Me Home.
I'm a no good, broke down, lost and found. You're a rich city mama in from out of town. Nothing between us but a mountain range. Now you're giving me those eyes and girl, I'm feeling strange. Whoa, whoa, you are a smoking gun. Whoa, whoa, gone with the setting sun. Whoa, whoa, honey, tonight let's play fools. Oh, are you gonna follow me home? Are you gonna follow me home? Are you gonna follow me? got much to offer but some cheap red wine. I got some dust on the floor and some 45. An old turntable and an unmade bed. Now you're lifting your shirt up from over your head. Oh, whoa, you are a smoking gun. Whoa, whoa, gone with the setting sun. Oh, whoa, whoa, honey, tonight let's play fool. So, are you gonna follow me home? Are you gonna follow me home? Are you gonna follow me home? Gone with the setting sun. Whoa, whoa, honey, now what will you choose? Oh, are you gonna follow me home? Are you gonna follow me home? Are you gonna follow me home?
All right, that was Daniel Ellsworth and the Great Lakes with Follow Me Home. Daniel Ellsworth is not in the Nashville Ambient Ensemble, but Timon Capel is, and is a member of Daniel Ellsworth. He's one of the Great Lakes, I assume.
He is one of the Great Lakes, I believe.
Yes. Of all the songs on this track listing that we're playing today, that one is the one that is the most of an outlier, I think. Tell me more about Timon and what they're bringing here.
That's what I love about this group is we have people from all kinds of different music scenes, and we have people who bring really unique perspectives. And honestly, we have some people who don't really listen to ambient music, maybe, or or just involved with a different scene. But that's what I really love about this group, and it's not a requirement for someone to be super into like this kind of music to be in the group. And just a quick aside, I think like when we were starting to put this project together and just to talk about it, people thought like, oh, you're going to get like a bunch of people in with the same room all on a modular synthesizer, and we're just going to like have a big blob of synth sounds.
Uh-huh.
But that wasn't what I wanted to do with it. I really wanted to make it like the Nashville Ambient Ensemble and bring in some more signature Nashville sounds and like traditional instrumentation. Anyway, I'll get off of the soapbox there and talk about Timon. Timon is a friend of mine who I've known for a long time, really great guy and a close friend. And Daniel Ellsworth and the Great Lakes I think they're mostly all Belmont guys. So definitely shout out to them. And I definitely feel, some bond with them because the band has that like Belmont excellence. They're like really great at what they do. And Timon is an amazing guitar player. What I love about Timon's playing is he really brings, at least on the ensemble album, he really brings like that Nashville guitar sound.
Interesting.
Like the
intriguing.
There is a little twang there, but like it's more so like I don't know much music theory, but there are certain phrases that he does that have that like country and just Nashville sound to it. So I really, really love his contributions to the album. I think they made it really special, and one solo in particular on Conversion, he's the guitar solo at the end of Conversion that kind of like definitely ends the song like with a bang. And he kind of like got on fire on that take in the studio, and it's really an amazing solo. So anyway, I think Timon brought something that was like purely Nashville to the project.
I mean, an ambient ensemble with the Nashville sound. You couldn't.
Yeah, it's not ambient music. And I feared that like some of the ambient purists out there on Twitter would like slay me when the album comes out, and they very well might. But honestly, it's not really ambient music, but I called it the ambient ensemble because I think listeners understand that word. They understand what it means and what they could expect to hear
totally
from that.
Yeah.
And so,
oh man, don't let the purists get you down. I mean, you're never gonna win them over ever.
Well, I think for most people it works.
Yeah, I have. You sent me the record, and I intentionally did not listen to it because I want to be surprised on release day. I want to like enjoy.
But you literally haven't listened to it yet?
No, I mean I've listened to the singles that have been released.
The two.
But I have.
Okay. Wow.
I've not listened to the whole thing because I don't know. I'm old enough to like enjoy this anticipation of when the record is released.
I really appreciate that, and I'm the exact same way. Like I will pre-order an album on Bandcamp, and even when it comes out, I don't listen to it. I can't. Certain albums, I have to wait.
You gotta wait. That's part of the fun. Everything is such instant gratification these days. Like you don't have to go to the mall to buy the CD if there's a new album that's out. It's just like in your Spotify immediately. So there's something I like about this. Kind of forcefully holding yourself back a little bit for that enjoyment, because there's 2 songs that are out. I get to hear those. Like,
right.
I'm building anticipation.
Yeah. Okay, now you will notice Timon's playing when you listen to the rest of the album, because I think in contrast to Jack's, Timon's does have a very Nashville sound, and I love everything that he does on the album. It just sounds great.
I can't wait.
And one last thing I'll say about Timon is that I really feel like Timon and Jack kind of initiated this project in coming up to me that night at the show that I played. Timon really, really pushed me to try it. He kind of followed up with me, and we got together in like April of 2019, and he was there at the beginning, and he was super into the idea. I think he was interested in experimenting and trying something new. So he really pushed me to move forward with the project. So I appreciate that.
You might be the executive assistant, but he might be the man behind the curtain. Maybe. All right, let's listen to another track. This is actually one from you, I believe, Michael Hix with Vico. Is that right?
I guess it depends on if you're Italian or not.
Well, tell me how to say it.
I think Vico, I guess.
Vico, off of the album Numa. Is that how you say it? All right, cool.
Yep.
right, we just heard Michael Hix with Vico. That's how I'm saying it as a Southerner, born and raised in Nashville, off of the album Numa. It's an odd thing to ask you what you bring to the project, but what do you bring to the project? Like, tell me about this song, but also like in the context of the ensemble, how did you feel musically being in the room with all these people and what you brought to it? Yeah.
I mean, I brought the synthesizer sounds, the drones and stuff. Cynthia did have some synth sounds as well. Yeah, I brought the most of the synthesizer sounds, and my role in the project. Well, I wrote most of the pieces except for Jack's Cerulean track, and then I kind of, as I said earlier, I'm like the administrative assistant. I coordinated everything. But then I was also kind of like the conductor or director or something. Nothing really intense. I basically would just... So the structure of the songs it was kind of like a jazz or bluegrass structure where we had a simple theme or like a drone that would remain constant. And that as the basis for a round of solos. And the arrangement would or the score or whatever would basically just be a list of order of the solos who was supposed to go next. And in the studio I would just kind of like call out orders, like lunch orders or something, like who was going next. And that's kind of my contribution to it. And then I mixed the album as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but this track, the track that you just played, that was my last piece of music in the before Child era. And what you can hear there was kind of the last phase of what I was doing in New York, which was solo music, very intricately composed, meticulously to a fault probably, and more of like it's not classical music obviously, but more of a classical way of thinking about composition.
You have released additional music since that time, though, correct?
I have. I've released 2 longer form pieces on Bandcamp. One of them was it was just a live performance of the last show that I played in New York before leaving. And then another one is something I made here. But on both of those, I was starting to experiment a little bit more with improvisation in like more of a long form setting. Because as I said earlier, I was trying to figure out how I would be able to make music and also be a parent and everything else. So I was starting to try to work with improvisation and see how that might pan out for me.
Yeah, I really wanted to play, what is it, Tinging? Is that the correct title?
Yes.
Tinging I wanted to play that on a previous episode of this show, We Own This Town Music, but it is 21 minutes long. So it's very difficult for me to get a 20-minute song into the show. So I may have to revisit, just play an excerpt.
You could just pick any random minute.
Just 1 minute of it. Well, maybe I'll do that, and we'll hear that on a future episode. All right, well, we got one more track. This is actually UUO, which is Cynthia Cardenas. I think I'm saying her name correctly. And this is, I don't know, it might be more of an outlier than the Daniel Ellsworth track. But this song is also very long. This song is 10.5 minutes. So might not get the whole thing in there, but I'll make sure that what we do play is the gist, the part that you need to hear.
Yeah, you can't just pick any random minute.
All right, that was UUO with, and I kid you not, this is the title, The Frog Moonwalks into the Pond. Read a book. And that is a contributing member of the Nashville Ambient Ensemble, Cynthia Cardenas. I think I'm kind of speechless as to, I mean, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. There's no part of me that did not enjoy that, but what's going on there? What is this?
Incredible. I met with her one-on-one as we were about to record the ensemble album. And she said, let me show you this stuff from my band that I'm working on. And she played that 10-minute track, and it blew my mind. First of all, she completely slays on the guitar. So I was told, we like met at a party, and I was told that she is an amazing guitar player. But wow, like she is like, virtuosic. And then on top of that, just like the creative arc of that track, and kind of like blending of genres, I was amazed by that when she played it to me, and I feel like it needs a proper release. There are other tracks there. Anyway, I don't want to step on her toes. I'm not sure what the plans are, but amazing piece of music.
Well, it will be linked in the episode description for this episode, and if the 10.5 minute didn't make it into this cut, please do yourself a favor and go listen to the entire thing, top to bottom. It is a marvel. It is so good. And the idea that this is that a virtuoso like that contributes into this project is just more, I don't know, it's like more acknowledgement that you've put together a group of musicians that are not just like modular synths and everyone doing the same thing. Like this is pulling from so many different places.
Yeah, that's what I like about this project. It became something where you didn't have to be an expert on the scene to be a part of it, and it turned into a space where any of these people could bring their talents, and those were wanted and welcomed there. It became a very open environment of making the album. We all worked together really well. Yeah, I just like that, like you said, it wasn't just a bunch of people on synthesizers. It was more so just a space where several people could create something different. Well, one more thing I want to say about Cynthia. Cynthia and I met, and I told her about the ensemble. And I think this was at a party, and I was like, well, do you want to be in it? And she was like, yeah, for sure. And then we were like, well, what will you play? And at first we were thinking that she would play bass. But when we started to practice, it just wasn't fitting in. So she said, I have this like guitar synth thing, and let me bring that. And oh boy, that was so awesome.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that you haven't heard the whole album yet, but let's see. Oh yeah, you really haven't even heard her playing very much yet. On Inga, the second track, she has an incredible solo at the end. It's just like so heartfelt, but this really like kind of mutant, like synthetic string sound. It's so awesome. She brought something really, really unique and kind of left field sounds to the album. Yeah, I really love what she does on it.
You had me at guitar synth. That's all I needed to hear.
Yeah, she literally had like this rack synthesizer and like a MIDI guitar plugged up to it.
Incredible. So I think the last thing that we want to play, as you don't need to comment on this. We're just going to play the episode out with a track from the Nashville Ambient Ensemble. I think it probably makes sense to take us out with Coda. It's one of the tracks that's out. It's the last track on the album. I really appreciate you talking to me about all of this. If there's anything you want to add, I'm going to, at the end of this, I will tell people where to find the Nashville Ambient Ensemble. It's obviously linked in the episode description. All of your social media will be linked as well for everyone to follow you. I'm just really excited to see this kind of collaboration happening on something that's this unique and interesting. I can't thank you enough for being a part of putting all this together.
Well, thank you so much. And I greatly appreciate your support of the music, and you've supported my music personally in the last year. I greatly appreciate it, and your enthusiasm and kind words about it. And on top of that, I really appreciate the service that you give to Nashville in opening people's ears to new music that's being made here, and in turn supporting all kinds of artists in Nashville. So it's not lost on me. I know it's a lot of work, and I really appreciate it, and I love what you're doing. And then, yeah, thanks so much for being willing to take the time to talk to me about this album.
Absolutely. It's been a blast. Really appreciate it.
I've enjoyed it too. Thanks so much.
All right, everybody, that's our show. Many thanks to Michael Hix for taking the time to talk to me about the Nashville Ambient Ensemble project. I've had my pre-order in for the record for some time, and this whole experience has got me even more excited for it to be released. If you need reminding, again, it's all out on Centripetal Force Records on Friday, March 19th, 2021. Links to pre-order it or order it, depending on when you listen to this, at Grimeys or on Bandcamp are in the episode description, along with links to all of the musicians that are involved with the Ambient Ensemble. Definitely check all of them out. You will want to be clued into everything that they're doing. It's a great idea. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming on the next episode, but I do plan on doing more interview episodes in the coming weeks. It's fun. I hope you're liking it. Find us at We Own This Town on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and you'll get updates about all the new episodes from all of our We Own This Town shows. Visit our site, weownthistown.net. Sign the mailing list. I said it at the top. I'm going to say it at the bottom. This thing only keeps going if we keep growing it, so please subscribe. Many thanks to Upright T-Rex Music for the music playing underneath me right now. Find them at uprighttrexmusic.com. Take care of yourself. Keep wearing a mask. Keep watching that vaccine news, and I'll talk at you soon. Boop.